soon as I start taking these R's.
Okay. Is this pretty much everybody?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. This is I'm Sean Lassord. I'm with Renewable Rochester. Kind of invented this one day. Decided this would be a good educational project. People could teach students and a little curriculum on renewable energy and how it works. And this unit is just a single 12-volt battery. It's a deep cycle battery, about 575 cold cranking amps. It's similar to what would be in a boat. On this unit, this is the main power supply, okay, is the battery. And then you have a 30-watt monocrystalline solar panel. And on the back of the solar panel are what's called MC4 connections. Stop, and if you have any questions, stop and ask me at any time. On the back, this is the most common connector that the solar industry has, is MC4 cables. Okay, and what we can do is we have a little bit of an extension cable here. We can plug these right into here. And now that's going to actually produce, both from sun and from ambient light, a little bit of electricity inside. It doesn't perform real good. It does outside when you got sun or a little bit of clouds. You're going to produce energy. That energy comes in here, and inside here we have two different charge controllers. Okay, we have the main charge controller, and then we have a timer charge controller. Okay. And what they do is they control the amount of energy that the solar panel is sending to the battery. So they don't want to get the battery overcharged. And there's actually a little meter on this charge controller that tells me how many amps that it's producing, the solar panel, and what the battery voltage is, and how much of a load we're drawing. So if we plug things into this unit here, which is a little USB charger, you can charge your iPads or your iPhones with it, or you can plug in like a USB or a auto power. You can plug right into there, and you'll actually see the meter that's in the corner here showing how many watts and how much of a draw that those units have. And what I've done is I've hooked up this little digital meter here to this USB unit right there.
Only the 12 volt? Yeah, only the,
yep.
The 12 volt system that goes to. Okay.
And then there's also a timer unit here that, and I like to put this unit in these educational kits. And what it does is will actually turn on this light. And I put this in here because this is very common that these units will be used out in the field. And what they do is, if I had, let's say, a welcome to a town sign or welcome to a college, and I wanted to be able to turn that light on at night, that unit there, that little unit right there, has the ability to say, okay, no solar, I'm going to turn on a light. And what happens is it will actually turn that light on after the sun goes down, or it will turn the light on after a certain period of time. There's a little tiny, I have it on 2 hour right now, just a little tiny adjustment right here to adjust that for 2 hours after the sun went down, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. So you could actually be out in the field, set this up, and you wanted to illuminate something at nighttime, you could do that. We have an inverter here. So if you wanted to do like what Chip does, he makes smoothies out in the field, you can plug in a 120 volt appliance right to here.
Some people survive. Chip makes smoothies.
We did 350 on one charge.
Did you really? Wow.
How's it going, Mr. Wilbert?
That wasn't even begun to be down.
There's a system schematic right here that shows the electrical diagram of how it all works. Some people are interested in that. There's also a little panel box right here that has a circuit breaker for the solar panel and also has a circuit breaker for everything else in the unit. So you can just turn those off when you're not using it, and turn your inverter off when you're not using it, otherwise your battery will go dead. Pretty self-sustaining little unit. You could take this out in the field if you wanted to do, I have some biology teachers, some science teachers that take it out in the field, and they'll plug into this unit and they'll do testing on streams and do different things out in the field. They show their kids, not only renewable energy, but they'll be able to utilize the power out in the field. There's a couple of fuses in here just as protection, and you can't really hurt anything. It's pretty self-sustaining. You can also show, if you have the panel and you're out in the sun, what we like to do is we'll take a piece of paper and we'll cover up some of the cell and leave a lot of the cell open. And what you can see by that is, if you look, there's a charging display here. If you look at the charging display, you'll actually see, if you take the piece of paper away and you're in sun, how shading can affect these solar panels. And then you put the piece of paper back on, it actually slows down the charge. Questions?
I have one, Sean.
Okay.
It's showing you the current charging.
Yeah.
In terms of what? Of watts? Of
It actually has on
just
here.
light indicators?
The first thing you see is your voltage, and there's a little LED next to it. So you see your voltage, and then you see your solar amps. So it actually designates how many solar amps can be charged off of
on
this
the digital
solar
readout?
amp.
That's what.
Yeah, on this
As
one.
the readout changes, as the LED
Right,
changes,
okay,
the
it
readout
scans.
changes,
Yeah.
yeah, and it just
Okay.
scans
And then
down
the
through.
last one on the bottom is load amps. Okay, and you'll actually be able to see how many amps you're powering from here. So as you plug different things in, and I've had some people plug 2 or 3 different cell phones, and they've charged cell phones off of here, and then somebody plugs their iPod into here. They can actually see that. They can actually see the charging amps and the solar amps, so they can be able to tell, okay, I'm using 5 amps, let's say, to charge, or 2 amps to charge, and I'm charging by 6 amps, let's say. So we know we're gaining.
Is it load at 0 when the inverter's on? Because you said that can draw the battery down.
The inverter can draw the battery down. When it's off, it's totally off. It has a little light to indicate on the top that it's on. There's also on the top, and it's a little hard to see from your seats, but there's a little digital screen on the top that shows you battery voltage. And there's also a little switch on the top too that you can change. And if you had something like the smoothie machine plugged into the top, you'd actually be able to see how many watts that you were drawing from that device, from this inverter, and it'll actually show you right on the top.
How much does the inverter draw?
It's an 1100 watt inverter with a 1500 watt spike. I plugged in a drill just to see what would happen, and it works really good. Pretty self-sustaining unit. There's not really much that.
What happens, Sean, when you put too much of a load? And I think I know, because we got the smaller inverter like that too, and we put a little hand 1500 watt hair dryer.
Yeah.
I think ours was 1500 and then like 2,000 or 3,000 spike.
Yeah.
But it still tripped it.
It'll trip. It will trip it.
But that's all. It should only trip it, right?
Correct.
And then where's the reset?
Yep. And if you shut it off,
Just shut it off and turn it back on.
and then you turn it back on,
Okay.
it will just reset the inverter. So
And
it
that
doesn't
did
do
work.
anything. Yeah, if somebody were to by accident take a screwdriver and stick it in the terminals and short it, it would blow a fuse that's located up underneath here. But I don't expect that would happen. If they overload it, they just have to simply shut it off and turn it back on. So you can explain to the students from this digital meter here. It actually will do calculations and show you watt hours and voltage and ampacity and kilowatt hours. So there's a bunch of different variables there. So in the beginning of your training, you can show them A, B, C, D equals how much load, how many amp hours it's drawing, how many watts it's drawing, and just what the impact of draining the battery down is. Questions?
How much is the unit?
How much is this unit? About 1,400.
Not bad.
Back at the amp hours, now that's the cumulative.
Yeah.
So how long does it stay adding it up before it's reset? Or how
You can actually reset it. It takes a little bit to reset it, but you can reset it. I usually tell people if they use the number that's on there and they start from
Find
there,
the
that's their
difference.
0 point. You
But-
can reset it though.
But it doesn't automatically reset when you shut the whole unit off?
It may on this one. They've come out with some different revisions of these, so the software as it changes, we'll try it and see. This is 2.1. I think yours were 1.8.
What?
Yeah, it will reset after you turn the power off, so that's
Oh.
good.
That's just simpler, that's all.
Yours, I think, are cumulative. Your one that you have is
Okay.
adds up. And then there's a button on here if you wanted to turn off some of the features of the charge controller, but you really don't need to do that. And then there's a battery sensing device if you ever wanted to add an option to the battery sensing device. That's it. It's pretty self-reliant. Keep the cover closed just because you don't want any piece of metal to go across the battery terminals by accident. And you can actually, if you have a classroom that is facing south, the windows are, you can actually put the panel in the window, leave these turned on, and keep the inverter off, and you'll actually charge the battery with the solar panel, which is what I've been doing the past 2 weeks.
How long does it take? That's
From a dead battery, it'll take a couple days from a dead battery.
Really?
Yeah. This is a 30-watt panel, so it's not really made to. It depends on the amount of sunlight. If you had full sun, 1 day probably would charge it up. But typically, you're going to expect a couple days with a 30-watt panel.
Have you ever charged it with anything but the panel?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to offer to suggest, and I don't tell everybody, but with my kit goes a little car charger, just a little 12-volt car charger, and it's like easily overnight. Because half the time at least that I use one of these units in my workshops, we don't have sun,
Yeah, right.
and so you've got to just talk about the potential and stuff. But
Or if you're
Where do
doing
you
it
live?
inside even.
what's that?
Where do you live?
Are these lights enough?
Tennessee County. Enough said. But
Same place you do.
yeah, I mean, like, we're taking this to Washington in 3 weeks, and we can't serve food with it, so I can't do our smoothies. We're inside, we have no sunlight, where it's all these limitations, so I'm just going to charge it before we go, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, and you may have to charge it with a trickle charger if you need to.
That's
you
what
can.
that's what it is that I use.
Yep, you could
12,
do that.
$15.
I'm actually making these now where the trickle charger, I'm putting a little cord on there and putting a trickle charger
So
in
lead
the
connector?
unit. Yeah, just so it it helps it out a little bit if they need it. You can keep the panel disconnected if you want. These are quick disconnects, so you just kind of have to squeeze. When you put them together, you'll hear them lock. Okay, and then it's just a simple push them together like that, and they come apart. They're MC4 cables, so they're really not meant to take apart, but for this case, it's good to have a locking connector while it's operating, and then you can simply just squeeze these in. It comes apart. That's it.
Nice.
That's it. Questions?
Why did you order the lights?
Whatever
did?
he told me.
Oh,
I said, what
That's
should I
really
do?
cool.
And he said, this is your option. I said,
Can
okay.
we
You
test
got a
that?
built-in
Can we
feature.
test the lights out?
Sure.
You got a built-in device that way. Is that a load dump too, or not?
Yes, it can be configured to be a load dump as well.
good in the dark. I don't want to ask questions or surmise anything, but we're weird.
Let the light on.
We're having a seance.
It's a Ouija board right there. You got to tap into the Ouija board there.
I've had a lot of these installed. I have some of these that have been installed for like 10 years for lighting signs for municipalities, and they work really great. As a matter of fact, on the same battery, if you can believe that, the battery manufacturers are just dumbfounded. They say, our batteries are only supposed to last six to 7 years, and we have batteries that are 10 years old because they're constantly keeping a charge on them.
That's what Alfred does at their satellite campus in Wellsville on their sign out front. They just have a small panel there, and it dumps into a battery box. It's actually buried in the ground, right in the planter that the sign is in. They have a ground box with a battery and a controller, and it's hooked up, and that's how they light up their front sign.
Solar? I mean, it charges.
Yeah, with solar. Yeah, it charges all with solar. There's no power that goes to the sign light at all. I mean, it's all run off.
Thruway operates that
battery
way.
backup and solar.
Yep. Thruway 490. I did a project on 390 with some traffic cameras and stuff, and that's all working off of this technology.
I have a question, and this goes a little bit beyond just the solar unit, but I'm trying to develop curriculum for junior high on up that really allows them to work with guessing and charging the battery, the length of time it'll last, and all that. What information do we have on the battery that will allow us to use formulas like amp hours, or in other words, how many kilowatt? What I'm trying to do is calculate how many kilowatt hours a battery will hold, and I've got it ballpark. I think about a third of a kilowatt hour.
I have a sheet I can forward you, certainly.
That'd be great.
That has a lot of that information in it. And the nice thing about this little unit here, this little guy here, this can be configured to a bunch of different scenarios. Like right now, I have it so that it's between this unit and the battery. You could put this unit, or you could have two of these, so that you have this unit in between here and the battery, and you also have the second unit in between the charging in the battery, so it gives you a lot more information. And it'll keep track of those amp hours, how much you're using, or have this in between two sources, so you have twice, you have two different sources of power, so as one power kicks on, the second one kicks on, then you see more of your battery drain. I actually have a bunch of charts and a bunch of information I can forward to you guys if you'd like, with ampacity and kilowatt hour drain for the batteries.
That would be good. And for my own sake, I need to get it. It's as simple as it can possibly be. The kids can pick it up, but the adults who I'm trying to teach the kids have a hard time picking it up. Including myself sometimes, but
Let the kids train the adults.
These are pretty
Do that all the
robust panels too. You're not going to break them too easy. Although I saw a broken panel yesterday for the first time in the field, I couldn't believe it. And I went up on a customer's roof, and he says, "Would you mind looking at one of my panels? It looks kind of funny." And I went up there, and he goes, "It's been that way for a year now, over a year." And it was a golf ball from his son, and drove it up. And I said,
My son up there. Like,
I said, "It's about a hole about this
Hooked to the left a little too
big,
much.
and it looks like it came from this direction." He goes, "Well, that's where my son was driving golf balls." So,
how much you get a hole that size? It affects more than that percentage of the panel, doesn't it?
well, it actually shattered the glass. If you get this is safety
Once
glass.
you get moisture in it,
It'll
screwed.
moisture, and what happened is over the year time frame, it actually shorted out and blew the fuse in there. He had 6 strings.
So on each of the rows, I can't remember which way, but they're connected together. So I mean, you kill one, you break one point, everything behind it is dead.
In a series.
Yeah, exactly. And
He knocked out 6
With those
panels.
You can actually get independently wired panels, but those are pretty expensive.
Yeah. They actually just came out with a new module, a new AC module, SunPower did, where you could, as a homeowner, or you could, as a class, have one panel that's AC 120, 240 volt output.
Yeah, with the microinverters.
Yeah, this one here is a true AC module, and and it has a microinverter built into it, but it's UL listed as an AC module. We're going to be doing 6 of them at Rochester Institute of Technology for bike charging. So students are going to be tooling along. They're going to come up and they're going to park underneath the bike charging station. They're going to pull the cord out. They're going to plug it into their bike and be able to charge their bike off of microinverter solar panels. And then when it's not being charged, like in the wintertime, they're not going to be riding their bikes around. They're actually going to be putting power into the campus, using the power in the campus. So,
Which is basically into the grid? Or
yep.
Yeah.
So
What kind of bikes? You mean like just pedal bikes that are supplemented with a
pedal
motor?
bikes with motors on.
Wow.
So they have a little tiny battery pack, and they can pedal it.
Are those the
and
ones
when
that
they
hang off
pedal-
the back? They hang on
Yeah,
the sides
they-
of the rear wheel?
Yep.
375 a gallon.
They
That's what I'm gonna be
can,
looking
they
for.
can pedal
shortly.
and charge the battery, or they can plug in and charge it. So, pretty
Man, I would
neat.
love to get one of those
They're a
setups
motorized
for,
assist.
educational purposes.
They're a
That would
motorized
be
assist.
great.
UB's doing something similar, but with cars, and you can actually buy time for cars. The students can to basically run a car to drive around campus. Then you pull it in the parking lot, and they've got like the four chargers.
They're going to do that too. They're
That's
going to have a
what does
car.
their security is all those little electric.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're going to have swipe cards and everything, I guess.
yeah. They have it one setup right in the parking lot right next to Roswell.
Pretty neat.
Okay.
Give it 200 years, it'll be like getting a car. Will be like ordering iTunes. You'll just order it up and it'll be charged to the
right.
grid. And
You're right. The one company that I deal with, SunPower, they're reaching out to all the dealerships that are going to be selling electric cars and saying, okay, if you have a customer come in to buy an electric vehicle, we're gonna put a solar system on their house for like a ridiculous amount of money. I think it's $2,000 or something. Here you go. You're gonna have a solar system on your house now. So they're starting to integrate all the dealerships and the cars and the charging stations and stuff. Pretty neat.
well, especially was it the phase 2 charging stations draw quite a bit. You want to offset it so that it's not killing your electric bill.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Well, thank you.
So enjoy.
Yeah. If you just want to put it on that cart, or I don't know if does anybody want to look at it when we're done? Okay.
Do you have any business cards or anything like
I
that?
do.
Those two leads that are on the back of the box, they're not supposed to clip in each other, would they?
I don't know.
And if they did, would you short it out?
Whether I.
If you, that's a very good question.
I'm better. Well, I'm better.
It depends on.
Like technically, they would clip together, right?
Yep, they will clip together.
Okay.
You'll pop this breaker right here.
Okay.
There's a breaker.
Oh.
You'll pop
That
that
makes it
breaker
easy, doesn't it?
and just reset it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids are
It's taken off.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
pop.
Video for the day, and those are the pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks. He's taken off.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had to teach.
Well, not everybody's been here all. Just so everybody knows, this is Chip Malone. I don't know if you know everybody.
I only know like 1 or 2 people.